Hi, this is Dr. Michelle Robin with Small Changes, Big Shifts, Building Rhythm and Resilience. And I believe if you'll change one thing a month, one thing for the next 12 months, you'll change your life forever. Thanks for joining me on the journey. It's my great pleasure today to be talking with my friends at Garmin who have been participating in this kindness campaign, creating a ripple from the heartland, east and west and north and south, to help combat this mental health crisis that we were experiencing before the pandemic. And definitely it has thrown gasoline on this situation. Joining me is Dee Krull. He is the Director of Software Excellence. And in full disclosure, JD and I have known each other for several years. So JD, it's nice to be chatting with you today.
Well, thank you, Dr. Robin. I'm glad to be here.
So tell me, what does the word kindness mean to you?
Oh, kindness. It goes so far. It's spreading warmth, positive thoughts, vibrations, everything. I'm a hugger, and I know you are too. And just hugging somebody is an exchange of energy, positive energy. That's kindness.
You know, I'm going to take you back a couple decades, pre-Garmin, which may be 3.1 decades ago. Can you tell me a story when you were a kid where somebody was kind to you? That maybe, because you're really a kind, thoughtful person and very present. So tell me a story when you were a kid that somebody showed you kindness.
So probably I inherited the concept of kindness from my mother. She was the most forgiving and flexible and just positive person there could ever be, right? Always saw the positive aspect of every person, of every situation, so forth.
I love that. I'm curious, in what ways has kindness made a difference in your life and or your career?
So from a career perspective, I would have to go back to Min Kao. So obviously he started Garmin. I came to work for him and Garmin very early, but I also worked for him for almost 2 years at a prior company. And I remember him describing a story to me of just his philosophy, right? From everything, including compensation. Right? How important it was for him to be fair, and how he really worked hard at making assignments. And every now and then, you know, everybody has to make an assignment to somebody of something that they need to work on, because everything needs to get done, right? But it might not be the most fun thing to work on. And so he'd come to work in the morning and have to walk past the person's office that he had given a particularly less enjoyable assignment, and he would walk fast because he felt bad about it. I mean, that's how thoughtful and kind he was, as an example. So when he left that company and started what is now Garmin, I was the first to raise my hand and say, hey, I want to keep working for you. And then he is my example as a leader, right? That's the example I want to live up to. Hope I do someday.
So did I hear you right in our pre-conversation? You're the number one employee at Garmin? Not the number one employee, but the first employee.
Chronologically, yes. Min refers to me as the first employee. I think of myself as the fifth engineer. It's just that the 4 guys ahead of me, they all owned part of the company. I was just the first worker bee that was excited to have a job working on cool stuff and a retirement plan.
So I'm curious, what does kindness look like from a leader perspective? You know, with the goal of this campaign, this 31 Days of Kindness campaign that Garmin's participating in, and about 250,000 other people around the world are participating in, is really, once again, to help shift the mental health crisis. We know from research, when people are kind to you, you're kind to other people, as I mentioned in our prior conversation with the keynote, is that it changes the feel-good hormones in the brain. So I am curious, what does a kind leader look like? Because some people think the word kind means soft.
Oh, no. Many times in terms of leadership, you have to be firm, but it doesn't mean you don't have to be kind, or you can't be kind and be firm at the same time. But again, I would come back to Min's example of kindness, caring about the assignments you make for people, trying to match up talent and need. So if there's a need at the company and you have somebody who has a talent to match that need, then boy, that's when you feel the best about being able to make those assignments. And again, we've all got to do the things that are less fun because everything needs to get done. But beyond making assignments, guiding people, so forth, being a leader is part-time therapist. Sometimes being kind is just listening, right? Whether an associate is having challenges at work or at home, listen and be empathetic. Can't offer much. I'm not a therapist, right? But you don't have to be a therapist to listen and be kind and empathetic and sympathetic to whatever it is that they're going through.
Sometimes I have the name psycho chiro or chiro psycho, so I totally get that. We're all we're all some type of therapist. I'm curious, personally or professionally, can you think of a time, and this gives me a little bit of goosebumps saying this to you because I probably could answer this myself for you, but can you think of a time where you got a thoughtful note or a phone call or a text where you were kind to somebody and you had no idea they really needed your guidance at that time? Can you think of any?
Absolutely. I've been in heated debates over products that we're designing and features we're creating, and everybody's passionate about what we're going to do for this product. And I've always been one to make sure that, my opinion is heard. Doesn't always go my way, but I got back to my desk. I had a note from another gentleman who was part of the meeting, and he's like, I really admire how you can be so passionate about a particular thing we're discussing, but yet accept when it goes another direction. And it's like, wow, that's one of the best compliments I've ever received. And it's like, yeah, because we're a team, and I've come to appreciate throughout my career that the best products aren't any one person's opinion, right? It needs to be the collaboration of everybody in order to appeal to the broadest audience or customer base. So yeah, it was really thoughtful of him to go to the trouble to send that note and say, hey, I admire you for being able to accept, right, and move on and then promote and believe in the product and so forth. It's like, well, yeah, because it's ours. It's not just mine.
I'm curious. We saw a video earlier today about the boomerang effect of how when someone's nice to you or gives you a compliment or something nice for you or kind to you, it ripples. Do you know how did that create a ripple in you? Have you tried to pay that forward to your team or to your family or friends?
Oh, absolutely. One of my philosophies, guidance to beyond people I lead, of course, family, I lead the family as well, right? But I always try to emphasize, do more than what you consider your fair share, right? And if both sides are doing more, it'll be hard not to meet in the middle. Ultimately, there should be overlap. But sometimes one or the other's perception of what's fair is not. And so if you're doing more, you'll at least reach across halfway and meet them still. And that's a part of kindness, right? Being willing to do more than your fair share. And don't feel bad about it when you really did do more than your fair share, right? What matters is the result.
That makes me think of the word harmony. There's balance, which is hard to find balance prior to COVID. It's definitely hard now. But how do you find harmony where it's a 60-40 one day or 70-30 one day, but it flips and switches? So JD, I've got two final questions for you. Okay.
Right.
The first one is, what is your medicine for the world? What do you think that got put inside your soul to share with the world?
Positivity, right? My glass isn't just half full, it's overflowing. And I want to share all the things that I enjoy with the rest of the world.
I love that question. I love your answer, and I would agree with you. As like I said, for knowing you, hard to believe. Not your whole Garmin. I don't know you all 31 years, but probably about 27 of them. So, my final question for you: what do you want your team's legacy to be, or Garmin's legacy, whichever your big team or your little team?
All of the above. We made the world a better place.
Well, you're definitely making a better place. We're creating a ripple with your leadership, the way you are listening and caring other people. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for all the ripple that you create on a daily basis.
You're very welcome.
Well, Krista, it's great to be having this conversation. I've heard about you for years from some friends, and Krista Klaus is the Director of Global Corporations Communications. We have somebody who's been with the company for 31 years, someone who's been there about 18 months, and I believe Haley about 12 years or so. I'll see if my math is right with that. Krista, what does the word kindness mean to you?
Oh my goodness. I mean, kindness, I think, is an orientation to life. I mean, it's really, you have a choice every day when you wake up about how you're going to approach it, and how you interact and perceive and encounter people along the way will really change the course of your day and then your life. So, I mean, to me, kindness is a mindset, but it's also a way of living.
You know, I believe that people learn how to treat others and treat themselves from some significant people in the early part of their life. When you think about your younger life, can you tell me a story about kindness where somebody shared with you that helped set this path for you?
I mean, my mom is my touchstone. She has been. She passed earlier this year, but really, she was so extraordinarily kind. She was so, she had so much wonderful intuition, and she just a bundle of love. And she just, if anybody who would encounter her, she wanted to hear their story. She just wanted to just absorb people. She was the biggest people magnet I have ever encountered. And I can tell you that I'm constantly trying to live into her example. But she would, I would come home from school, and so I remember sitting on the front porch with her, and she'd say, what'd you do nice for somebody today? Lonely kids around. I might have been lamenting about having been left out or something on the playground, or how a friend may have treated me, but she'd always flip it. I mean, she was empathetic to what I was going through, but then she'd say, how you feel right now, the rest of the school or half the school feels that way at any given day. So what are you doing to change that for somebody? And so she trained me when I was feeling lousy to look around and think about what others might be going through. And I'm grateful that she instilled that at a young age.
How have you, as a communications person, and been that your whole career, I believe, so how have you utilized that in storytelling?
Well, I mean, I think you just have to really want to hear all sides of a story. The way things have changed for journalism, even in the few years since I left, it's remarkable, this one-sided journalism. I can't really fathom it, because it was always, as I was trained up, you want to give a voice to the voiceless, and you need to share all sides of the story. I don't see that happening as much anymore, but I think that that's really important, to make sure that you bring empathy to communications. Walk the other person's shoes, not to make snap judgments. I'm not perfect at that. We all fall victim to that, but I think that would be, the most important thing, is trying to step into the person's shoes, the person that you're trying to tell their story, and really see the world and see the circumstance from their point of view.
When we thought about doing this campaign with our friends at Lockton and community leaders like Garmin, we thought about how do we shine the light on leaders, because COVID has not been easy on anybody. I love the saying, we're all in the same storm. We're in different boats, but we're in the same storm. And I think about my friend Sonia Choquette, who said to me years ago, Michelle, it's soul to soul versus not roll to roll. Mm. And so when I say soul to soul versus roll to roll, what comes up for you?
I think that it really all comes down to relationships. So, I mean, you can't, if you're roll to roll, you can't communicate on that level. You're strictly tactical. So, role to role, you're gonna get the job done, but soul to soul, you're going to have meaning in your work. You're going to have a sense of teamwork. You're going to have a sense of accomplishment, and you're going to be constantly learning and being willing to learn, and really admitting when you've made a mistake, when you're falling short. Because if you come in, with a top-down approach and you're strictly instructing or directing, you miss out on so much because we don't know it all. And I've really learned that coming into this role. So soul to soul is really important. I'm not sure that I get it right all the time. I have an ego like anybody else, but I think that relationships and good leadership begins with the relationship, and kindness has to play a part in that. Empathy has to play a part in that. Good leaders are going to be good communicators, and all that kind of rolls in together.
So what have you noticed, since you're probably the newbie, not probably, you are the newbie on this conversation today with your Garmin friends. So what have you noticed about Garmin's culture that you'd want to share, bringing in your history now that you're working at one of the top companies, and for sure Kansas City, probably in the world?
Yeah, I feel so lucky to be working here. It's an experience. I've had so much to learn, and I 1, 2, 3 months in, and then I'll look back and look at emails I wrote and just realize I really didn't know. It's an incredible place to learn from a product standpoint, and also from a corporate culture standpoint. I mean, the Garmin culture, what has resonated the most to me is the servant leadership here, because it's woven into everything that Garmin does. It's not just lip service. Every email, every interaction, there's this can-do attitude. How can I help? I never felt like, I would put this on myself because I've had so much to learn here, but I've never felt like she's an outsider, or gosh, she's got to learn. I've never felt an eye roll in a meeting. I have never heard people or seen people stand or talking about somebody else. How extraordinary that is. It really is. So the kindness embedded in this culture is it's quite profound, and just the commitment to excellence. It's woven through everything that takes place here. The engineering culture, the respect for the process, and the understanding of the culture. It's very rich. Everybody who works here learns quickly what this organization is about, what is expected of them, and what they need to do in order to succeed. And I don't think that is something that you see all the time.
I'm thinking of the word kindness, and feel free to share whatever you feel comfortable sharing from a personal perspective this year, or a career perspective, professional perspective. Anything about kindness, how it's shown up in your life in 2020 that you'd like to share with our audience today?
Well, sure. I have quite a story from 2020. I got really sick earlier this year. I found out in hindsight that I had COVID-19 in the month of March, and I thought I had just kind of had a cold. I mean, I suspected maybe it was COVID, but and then a couple of weeks later, I thought that I had gotten better, and I woke up and my fingers were tingling and my feet were tingling. And by the end of the weekend, I was fully paralyzed. I could not move. I could not walk. I had to be carried out of my home on a stretcher. And I went to the hospital, and they discerned pretty quickly that it was something called Guillain-Barré syndrome, and I would need to relearn how to walk. And I was in the ICU for 2 weeks, and in the hospital for almost 2 months. And during that time, completely isolated. So this was the pandemic. So couldn't see family, couldn't see friends. And while I was in the ICU, in fact, I found out that my mother had passed away. So all these things were taking place. And even though I couldn't touch anybody, couldn't be with anybody, I was so wrapped in love and community and caring. My family, my friends. I can remember being, I was moved from the hospital to the rehab facility. So a bunch of my girlfriends, got a bunch of signs, and I'm being wheeled through the hospital, and they're running along outside the windows of the hospital with these signs because it was on my birthday. And, we love you, happy birthday. And it was just, and that's just one little example. That's just one moment of it. But one of my girlfriends, like standing outside the window and, giving me a sign, putting up a sign from my room, Garmin sending flowers. My family didn't have to make a meal for months. The community just rallied around us, notes that were sent. You just are blown away by the kindness of others. I just was in this complete state of grace, really. So I couldn't wallow in what I didn't have, because the love and kindness and care that was being shown to me and my family, it just made my heart bubble up and over. So I couldn't feel sorry for myself. So it's been quite a year. And from that, I've just cultivated this attitude of gratitude. I mean, I try to live out of gratitude all the time. But it was extraordinary. If you're a person that likes to think of yourself as really independent and really strong, and you can get anything done, try learning how to walk again. Try being paralyzed. Try being away from family and friends. It's really humbling, and I highly recommend it. It's good for the soul, believe it or not.
It definitely makes you grow. That's for sure. Mm-hmm. That's for sure. You mentioned to me that you've been doing the kindness campaign. And we thought about the word challenge, and people are challenged already. And as people are going through a kindness campaign or something like this, I want people to realize, if it doesn't feel right for you that day, don't do it. Give yourself some grace. But I'm curious, what day have really sticks in your mind of something that you've done in the kindness campaign?
Oh, there's so many. I mean, they're just little nudges. Like, there was a day that encouraged you to really think about your pet. And, in the mornings you're tired, and my little dog she just put her little feet up on my leg, and it was her bid for attention, and sometimes we get so busy we don't pay attention, and it stopped my heart a little bit, because I was just like, oh yeah, you need my attention right now. Something as little as that, to sending a friend a book who was going through something with her son, and I just sent it. Didn't even say that it was from me, but it was a parenting book. Doing a shout out to women who are successful. I mean, there are so many of them that have stood out to me. I don't know if I could really pick one, but I have found it to be very powerful.
Well, great. I've just got a couple more questions for you. I'm curious, what is your medicine for the world?
My medicine for the world. It has to be gratitude. If there's something that anybody, if anybody would ask me, how do you get through tough times or whatever, it's living in a state of gratitude, keeping a gratitude journal. You can always find something to be grateful for. And acceptance is a big part of that too. Just accepting what the day has to offer. And I think that just sharing with people that you can have peace of mind by living out of those two things, gratitude and acceptance. There's a lot of joy there. So Brene Brown said something. I had a chance to listen to her speak. I wrote this down for a talk a couple of weeks ago. And she said that somebody asked her, how do you know that you will have lived your life well? And she said, a life well lived will mean that she was seen and loved by the people who mattered to her, and that the people who matter to her feel seen and loved. And boiling it down even more, I think it's just making sure that whether it's people you work with or people you live with, see them, hear them, listen to them. I think that is something that I want to pursue, and hopefully leave that legacy to my kiddos, family, and anybody I work with.
Well, and your four-legged friends.
And those two as well.
Gratitude.
Yeah. Gratitude for everything.
As a wellness chiropractor, I see people and I'll ask them, what's something good that happened today? And some people struggle right now. And most of the people I see walk in on their own 2 feet. And I'll be like, oh, if you ever struggle, you can walk today.
I know. And I never had that perspective. And I should have, when I said earlier, I really recommend it. I say that tongue in cheek. I mean, anything that can wake you up a little bit and have you appreciate the life you're living right now is always a good thing.
Well, great. I want to ask you this thought before I close with your final question. Is there anything that you want to share with your team today that I have not asked you about kindness?
Gosh, something that I would want to share with my team here at Garmin. I try to make sure that when I'm working with this, and it's a new team, so it's a little bit new. They're new to me, I'm new to them, and so I want them to always feel listened to. I want them to always feel empowered to try new things. I want them to know that I always have positive regard for them. And I want to reinforce, teamwork and communication so that so they know that I want to give them the tools to succeed. Our role here at Garmin in the public relations and communications space is to tell the Garmin story, which Garmin's traditionally been a pretty quiet company. So what we need to do is make sure that we share the Garmin story and all the great things that we're doing and the great products we're making while maintaining this service-oriented culture that Garmin tries to instill in associates. So we never want to be braggy. We never want to, thump our chests, but we want to, share that story together. And I think we have a really exciting journey ahead and tons of opportunities. So I'm really excited to be working with this team, and hopefully they know how proud I am of them because they make my job really easy.
Well, you answered my last question, which I thought you would. Thank you for taking time to share your story. I've heard about you for years. I'm sure a lot of your colleagues know that in the communication space that you're a big deal. So we're glad that you're at Team Garmin, and thank you for sharing your story today. And I'm so glad that you're thriving through this 2020, especially how the first quarter wasn't very kind to you in the second quarter.
Likewise, Michelle, I've been hearing about you for years too, and I have a tremendous amount of respect and for what you're doing here and kind of spreading kindness and planting the seed so that people get more out of life. So thank you for that.
Well, we're just going to keep spreading, creating a ripple from the heartland, just like Garmin has done with so many great things. All right. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Well, we're wrapping up our kindness campaign discussion with Haley Profit, and she is the Senior Wellbeing Specialist. And once again, in full disclosure, we go back a while. Haley, how many years have you been with Garmin?
I've been there almost 10 now.
Okay, well, I said 12 earlier, so I was kind of close. But I think I've known you most of that time. So thank you for joining me on this conversation today and for promoting kindness, not just at Garmin, but out in the community. So I'm curious, what does the word kindness mean to you?
I've been thinking about that a lot, both during the campaign and coming into today with you. And what really resonates for me is compassion. And it's nothing new for me to talk about compassion, but I think it's taken a very new meaning in the last, however many months that we've been dealing with the pandemic. And so kindness and compassion and self-compassion for me work very interchangeably. And so it's exciting to be able to talk about all of those together.
When you think about the word well-being, and you might know in the dictionary, well-being means happiness. So when I say well-being means happiness, with everything that you've been doing the last 10 years and the culture, the well-being culture you're not only trying to create at Garmin, but out in the Kansas City community, what comes up for you?
Oh gosh, for me personally, as a practitioner, it's been the same forever. It might transition and tune in and tune out differently, but it's very much that holistic approach. It isn't a one size fits all. It isn't, here's the only answer to anything related to well-being. It's very much a holistic, individual approach to what you need, what your body needs, and what's going to best serve you.
You're teaching people how to listen.
Yeah.
let's go back to kindness, because I think kindness is listening, because you need to be kind to your own body, and it's hard to be kind to others when you're in so much either physical or mental or emotional pain. So when you think about kindness as a young person, give me an example of someone being kind to you.
Yeah, for me, it definitely started in college when I really started down the path of corporate well-being and health promotion. And how did those instructors really set a precedence on how do you go out and live this? Are you living it in your own life and listening to what your intuition is telling you, listening to that gut reaction? And it can be something that is harder for others, but you can spend time doing it. But kindness for me was those initial days when I had this drive and interest and excitement in this career path, and really having someone behind me to say, you can do this. Like, you're connected to this. You're meant to be in this space. And it allowed me to really just own it and run with the passion that I have in it. And so I will never forget having the motivation all the way back then. And so even if I need a little bit now, it's that kindness moment I can always go back to.
When you think about your well-being team at Garmin, what do you want the legacy to be?
Oh gosh, if anything, I want them to know they're connected, they're heard, and that I understand what they need. I might not have a solution for them. I might not always have an answer they like, but to really lead others. It goes back to kindness and compassion, listening to them, making them feel understood, not just that you're understanding what they're saying, but for them to really feel it, for that connectedness to feel very homegrown.
I can't let that word, like I told you, I kind of listen for words, homegrown. And when you think about Garmin, it's a homegrown Kansas City company. We got a chance to talk to JD, who was, as he says, the fifth engineer, but the first employee. And think about the impact you guys have had on Kansas City and globally. How does that make you feel? I get chills even asking you the question. How does it make you feel?
Well, and it's the epitome of compassion. It's the evolution of an organization that has to be able to try new things, has to innovate, has to collaborate together, and really embrace different thoughts, different modalities of getting to the same goal, because that's ultimately what we want to achieve. And again, it just keeps, coming up for me. It's got to be through kindness and compassion. There are ways to have difficult interactions, and for everyone to come to the table with a different experience, a different background, different understanding, but having that kindness and compassion lead the conversations and lead the product development and really lead through that journey are going to make it so much more worth celebrating in the end. And so within Kansas City, to be able to have the legacy we do and the platform that we do to really talk about well-being and health and mindfulness and kindness and all of these things really sets us apart, so that folks know we care about our people. We genuinely care about our people. We're not saying it. We're not just putting it in writing. We're actually putting it into practice. And that's something that I think every associate is more than proud about.
I'm thinking about the word compassion and the word kindness as you kind of linking them together. And these words have never come out of my mouth this way. But thinking about how kindness is kind of compassion in action. Thinking about how do we act and how do we bring that through? And as we talked about earlier today in some of the statistics, and just to kind of recap them, anxiety disorders up, suicide ideations up, depressive disorders are up. And we know that when you're kind to yourself first, that's important. It's important for people to know that. And then kind to others, it changes the feel-good hormones. So what are some things that you encourage others to practice to be kind to themselves?
Oh my gosh. And now you're getting me excited, because I think one of my really big, pedestals I've been preaching from for the last 7+ months is the importance of self-compassion. I talk a tremendous amount about compassion, but self-compassion especially, and that's where you have to start. And there's a multitude of ways to do so, but a lot that I talk about with our associates is just time for, reflection, introspective evaluation, again, listening to that intuition. I think even just emotional agility, to recognize what your emotions are, question, are they accurate? Is this, does this apply to the setting and why I'm feeling it? It's okay to question yourself in that space and feel comfortable to do so, but then know when it's appropriate to let it go too. And so practicing self-compassion, hard for some, easier for others, but something we can all do if we grant ourselves permission and time and space to do so. And then it does become easier. But as soon as you are comfortable and openly practicing self-compassion for yourself consistently, then it also allows for that kindness and compassion to overflow into everyone else around you that you're interacting with. And people will notice.
Self-care. Let's talk about, I know you have a couple boys, and I'm wondering, with parents who are at home in these interesting times, what would be some guidance you would give them around raising kids during this time?
Oh gosh. Well, and self-care is something, really important to me as a professional, something I've always talked about. I think it's definitely taken a new look and a new face right now during a pandemic, especially for those parents that are at home working, maybe have kids with them. For me, it's become, how can I integrate these together? How can I integrate my family life, being a mom, being a wife, working from home, and still practice my self-care so that, my boys aren't seeing it as, well, there goes mom on another walk. How can I encourage them to go on a walk with me? How can I talk to them more about why I'm going on walks? How can we just do things? I know for me, being outside, especially in the sun, feet on the ground, helps me feel grounded, helps clear my mind, allowing for more creativity. So I recognize that in my own self-care. For folks at home right now, it's got to be a different practice of self-care, to be quite honest. Many may not be able to transition to what they had been doing for months, years before in terms of their individual self-care. And so how can they just find time to reflect? Listen to yourself. What do I need right now? And what can I do to practice self-care? And again, create a family dynamic where you're doing so together. It doesn't have, just because it's your self-care, doesn't mean you have to do it by yourself too.
That's a great reminder. Speaking of self-care, and the word I hear is tools, how to have a tool belt. And part of your role as the senior well-being specialist is to have tools for your team. What kind of tools can they expect to be hearing from you about over the next few months as we walk through our first COVID winter? Hopefully,
Sure.
hopefully our one and only COVID winter. I don't want to say one and only.
Yeah, the last one that we want to experience. There's always things available. And I just encourage associates, if you feel like you're needing something and you don't know where to start, reach out to me. I'm here to be a resource. If there's anything I can encourage anyone, don't feel stuck, don't get frustrated, don't feel like there isn't a resource or educational opportunity or tool out there for you. Reach out to me individually, reach out to anyone on the HR team, and they'll connect you with me. But again, I'm just so passionate about individual and organizational well-being that you've got to look at it very holistically, very broadly, and as an individual, determine what do you need. And so one of the things I do at Garmin is, through a training class, really encourage them to look at different dimensions and evaluate within an individual dimension of well-being, how are you doing, and assess different aspects of it, and then begin to recognize how do they relate to one another. And then you can really start to look at what resources are around you, what opportunities do you have to engage in different partners and platforms, educational series, things like that. We do know that mental health is a concern for many right now. We're seeing that rise, just as you had mentioned. And it's important to recognize, it's important to talk about. We've got educational seminars coming up on that I encourage folks to join. And again, plenty of opportunities in different aspects. We don't want the quarantine 15 to continue to be a concern. How can we find and leverage what's available through the internal program to really keep folks and their well-being top of mind right now?
Well, I have to share something funny with you, and I've not said this publicly except to my team, but I had a patient come in this week. And so for everybody that's thinking about, we got about 6 weeks left of 2020, and who knows whether COVID's going to go on 6 weeks, 12 weeks, or 16 weeks, or 32 weeks in 2021. But this is a time for you to kind of stop and reflect and see if you like where you're heading. And this was the article. They said, they read my client. I came in, they looked good. I thought, oh my gosh, you look great. She goes, well, my husband and I, we read this article going into COVID that you're going to come out one of four ways. All right. You're going to be a monk, a chunk, a drunk, or a hunk. And so let's have all these well-being companies truly come out as just living, walking the talk and taking care of themselves. Isn't that a funny way to put that?
Oh my gosh. What it makes me think of is come out of it thriving, not surviving. Don't put your head in the sand. Don't avoid the challenging, don't avoid the painful. Like, deal with it now. Come out thriving instead of just feeling like you survived it and you're that lunk and chunk and everything else.
Well, I'm hoping that by doing something like this kindness campaign, I want to say thank you to Garmin for allowing us to take this journey with you, to help shift what's happening, that people are doing it for their kids as well. In order for us to really shift what's happening globally, which I know Garmin's a global company, we've got to get into the soil. And the best way to get in the soil is to get into the thoughts and the actions of how people live their life. And so, Haley, is there any questions I've not asked you that you want to make sure that you share with the audience today?
I just really encourage everyone, tuning in today, whether you're an individual contributor or you supervise, manage others on your team, check in with each other. It sounds very minimal, but, and listen and care, being understood and really having a connection as a team, treating each other with that compassion, practicing self-compassion and kindness. That's what's going to get us through this. It's been a challenging year for all of us as individuals. I mean, even as an organization, Garmin's had a challenging year, and we are coming out of this better than ever, whenever that may be. And so in the meantime, through this journey, just continue to have your head up. When you need help, please ask for it. There are people there to support you and help you, and continue practicing that kindness and compassion long after these 31 days.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining us on this journey. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others. And most importantly, I want you to come through this experience better off than you were before, where you look back 10 years from now and say, you know what? I used that COVID experience to thrive in my life. And so that's what we're wishing for you. Have a wonderful holiday season. We're sending you lots of blessings.
I sure appreciate you listening to Small Changes, Big Shifts. If you go to the website, smallchangesbigshifts.com, we'll have the show notes ready for you there. If this episode inspired you to make a small change that will lead to a big shift, please share with a friend. You can catch our episode on Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, and our website. And if you feel like it, please leave a rating or a comment. Be sure to subscribe so you can catch our episode next week. Blessings to you.